What happens when the Soul Society's most cunning strategist faces off against the current leader, Shunsui Kyoraku, the head captain whose reality warping games turn battlefields into deadly theaters of war, versus Kisuke Urahara, the exiled genius whose intellect surpasses even Aizen's and whose inventions have shaped the universe of Bleach itself. Both of these characters wear their laid-back attitudes like masks. These conveniently conceal their tactical minds that operate on levels that most combatants cannot even comprehend. Shunsui weaponizes unpredictability through his children's games with lethal consequences, while Urahara's supernatural intellect allows him to devise thousands of battle strategies simultaneously. In this video, we'll be settling one of Bleach's most debated matchups by examining Urahara and Shunsui's abilities, feats, and combat philosophies to determine who would emerge victorious in a one-on-one battle between them. The environment for this battle is a neutral one within the Soul Society where neither fighter has environmental advantages. They don't have outside interference, there's no prep time or gadgets or devices beyond what they normally carry. This is a pure one-on-one battle testing their natural abilities. Both of them are at their absolute peaks. Shunsui has his complete mastery over his bankai, Katan Kyokotsu Karamatsu Shinju, with all 4 acts at his disposal. Kisuke Urahara wields his bankai Kanonbiraki Benihime Aratame, with its reality restructuring capabilities fully realized. The win conditions are straightforward, it's death or complete incapacitation. So with these conditions, it eliminates Urahara's preparation time advantage, which is one of his most formidable assets. We'll be examining what happens when these two masterminds clash with only the abilities that they've developed through centuries of experience. We'll now cover a basic overview of each of the characters, beginning with Shunsui Kyoraku. With his age exceeding 1000 years old, Shunsui represents the Soul Society's old guard. He trained directly under head captain Yamamoto and was one of the first graduates of the Shinigami Academy alongside Yushiro Ukitake. He learned combat history from the founder of the Gotei 13. His laid-back demeanor conceals absolute ruthlessness. During the fake Karakura Town arc, he explicitly tells Love Aikawa that captains don't have time to play the good guy. When honor conflicts with victory, Shunsui chooses victory without hesitation. Following the death of head captain Yamamoto, he became the new captain commander through recognition of his tactical genius and overwhelming power. Some of his key feats include defeating Coyote Stark, the first ranking Espada, whose mere presence killed nearby hollows, and he had done so using only his Shikai. He deliberately withheld his bankai against the number 1 ranked Espada. He cracked Aizen's defensive barrier with his Shikai alone, placing his offensive capability at very high levels. His combat speed creates after images that fooled even Lil Barrow's omniscient perception, which was granted to him by Yuhobak. Shunsui fought the leader of the Shoot Staff, Lil Barrow, who has the Shrift, the X-axis. This grants Lil intangibility and reality erasing attacks. Shunsui's bankai decapitated and detonated Lil's head. Lil only survived through divine resurrection. When facing Yamamoto alongside Ukitake during the Soul Society arc, Shunsui survived with only moderate injuries despite confronting the most destructively powerful Zanpakuto in existence. Shunsui's Shikai Katen Kyokotsu fundamentally alters reality through children's games. Everyone within range must obey the rules or face lethal consequences. Taka Oni amplifies damage from elevated strikes. Kage Oni weaponizes shadows, allowing attacks from any shadow touching an opponent, while preventing counterattacks when Shunsui hides within shadows. Iro Oni creates color-based combat, where declaring a color first means striking that color on your opponent, with damage scaling based upon coverage of that color. Then his game Daruma-san functions as a lethal red light green light game. If you move while being watched, you will receive damage. Kage Okuri creates after images through Reiatsu manipulation, allowing Shunsui to appear elsewhere while opponents strike decoys. Then we have his bankai Katen Kyokotsu Karamatsu Shinju. This manifests as a theatrical play which unfolds in 4 acts. Act 1 shares all wounds equally between Shunsui and his opponent. Act 2 manifests black spots causing persistent unhealing bleeding on the individual who attacks first. Act 3 traps both fighters in an inescapable ocean, draining spiritual pressure until someone drowns. The 4th act wraps a thread around Shunsui's opponent's throat before detonating their head. This worked on Lil Barrow's intangible light form, demonstrating its conceptual nature which bypasses conventional defenses entirely. Now moving on to Kisuke Urahara, he had served as the captain of the 12th Division and he was the founder of the Shinigami Research and Development Institute. He was exiled from the Soul Society following Aizen's holification experiments during the Turn Back the Pendulum arc, but this wasn't the end of his influence, but it was truly the beginning. Yobak named him as one of his 5 special war powers, alongside Ichigo, Kinpachi, Aizen, and Ichibei. It wasn't for raw power though. Urahara has strategic thinking and adaptability which surpasses everyone within the Soul Society. Urahara created the Hokyoku, breaking the barrier between Shinigami and Hollows while granting its masters deepest desires. He developed the seal, imprisoning Aizen for thousands of years and creating a vaccine against Askin's death dealing within hours. His scientific genius fundamentally shaped the Bleach universe's trajectory. Against Aizen in the fake Karakura Town arc, Urahara utilized a multi-layered seal within Aizen's body. This was disguised within a regular Kido attack. He correctly predicted Ichigo would weaken Aizen enough for the seal to activate, demonstrating near precognitive tactical capabilities. While other captains struggled to even scratch the transcendent being, Urahara's planning created conditions for victory in the future. Against Askin Naklevar of the Schutzstaffel, Urahara deduced his weakness to hollows, created an immunity drug for Yoruichi instantly, and forced the Quincy into his Volstandig. Though requiring assistance from Yoruichi, Grimjow, and Nell, Urahara's tactical planning created victory conditions for him. His training transformed Ichigo from a high schooler into a lieutenant level fighter in just 5 days during the end of the Substitute Shinigami arc. His signature abilities include his Shikai Benihime, which offers him remarkable versatility. With the release command Sing Benihime, Urahara fires concentrated energy blasts rivaling Sero attacks. Chikasumi no Tate creates a hexagonal barrier, withstanding Yami's monstrous strength and blocking Ichigo's Getsuga Tensho with minor erosion. Kamisori fires arcing energy which cuts through the iron skin protected Arrancar while changing direction mid-fight. Supane represents his Shikai's most sophisticated technique. After analyzing an opponent's reishi composition and muscle movements, Urahara can draw an energy circle perfectly timed to nullify enemy attacks at the point of contact. This requires split-second analysis and execution. Shibari creates blood red nets binding opponents, while Hyasobi transforms those red nets into devastating explosions. This brings us to his bankai Kanonberaki Benihime Aratame, which summons a giant woman serving as a catalyst for reconstruction abilities. Offensively, it can split open targets with surgical precision. Supportively, it stitches things together, creating battlefield healing. Take for example when Urahara healed his destroyed eyes after Askin's gift ring obliterated them. He restructured his own arm for greater striking power, temporarily overpowering Askin, and he can restructure space itself, creating pathways through impassable obstacles. Unfortunately, this bankai carries critical limitations, which include range. It only affects targets within a specific radius, so if an individual were to move outside of the radius of his bankai, then any changes made to their body because of the bankai will revert back to normal. This was evidenced with Urahara's stitches opening up again, which meant that his restored eyes disappeared. Now let's compare each of their abilities. Shunsui's Reiatsu operates as concentrated spiritual pressure weaponized into reality warping games. His Zanpakuto restructures battlefield rules themselves rather than relying on overwhelming energy output. The games aren't metaphorical, they are literal reality alterations. His moveset includes multiple Shikai games, advanced Kido like Hado 78 Zangarin, and Forbidden, plus his 4-act bankai. Strength lies in Shunsui's unpredictability. Opponents rarely know which game he'll employ until they are trapped in its its effects. Urahara's Reiatsu, on the other hand, manifests conventionally, but it achieves unconventional results through his intellect. His spiritual pressure supports devastating Kido mastery, analytical techniques dissecting enemy abilities in real time, and Benihime's versatile reconstruction powers. Where Shunsui creates new rules, Urahara exploits existing ones with precision. His bankai creates simultaneous offense and recovery opportunities. His Kido mastery rivals or exceeds Shunsui's, casting high-level spells without incantation and inventing new techniques on the go. His analytical abilities reverse engineer enemy techniques, creating counters instantly. Then we're looking at their physical combat stats. Both of them possess captain tier strength. Shunsui's strikes during the Stark battle carried enough force to clash with the Primera Espada. He cracked through Aizen's defensive barrier with a single Shikai strike. Urahara, on the other hand, was captain of the detention unit within the Onmitsukido, meaning he mastered their combat and assassination arts. And because of his role within the Onmitsukido, it meant that he was strong enough to keep prisoners in check. As seen when he stopped a giant prisoner's punch effortlessly and he blocked Ururu's powerful kick with one hand. And while he was training Ichigo, his strikes created massive craters. Both of their speed operates at comparable levels. Shunsui kept pace with Stark's Serral barrages and demonstrated faster than light movement against Lil, creating after images fooling omniscient perception. His Daruma-san technique allows traveling along Reiatsu trajectories, essentially teleporting while leaving decoys behind. Urahara trained directly with Yoruichi Shihoin, achieving speeds rivaling the Flash Goddess. His portable Gigai technique creates decoys through sheer speed, and he matched who tracked Tanjiro Korinji's legendary speed. Yamamoto stated Shunsui mastered Flash Step but couldn't outrun the Captain Commander, suggesting top tier placement. Urahara's childhood with Yoruichi does place him at similar speed levels, so I'd say both of them are pretty even in this category. In terms of techniques, we do see a significant gap. Shunsui trained under Yamamoto, earning respect from opponents like Stark. He is able to dual wield his Zanpakuto perfectly and he switches dominant hands mid-combat. However, Urahara's technical skill stems from assassination training. As the captain of the detention unit in Maggot's Nest, a prison holding captain class threats, weapons weren't permitted. His Hakuda alone secured the facility. We see Urahara toying with Ichigo through pure technical superiority. Even Aizen remained cautious during their confrontation. So I'd say Urahara takes the technique category through his specialized assassination mastery. Moving on to intelligence and strategy, Shunsui's battlefield intelligence operates on several layers. He constantly analyzes opponents for patterns and weaknesses. Against Stark, he deliberately forced situations which had limited the Espada's advantages. While fighting Lil, despite the X-axis seeming unbeatable, Shunsui identified that Lil's confidence created predictable behaviors which could be exploited via his bankai. His combat philosophy rejects honor for effectiveness, attacking from behind, using feints, exploiting psychological weaknesses. This was thanks to his centuries of training under Yamamoto, which provided him with practical battlefield wisdom. He doesn't just react, he manipulates opponents into disadvantageous positions through psychological pressure. Urahara, on the other hand, is a tactical genius. His intelligence borders on precognition. His ability to create thousands of battle plans simultaneously isn't an exaggeration. Can't Be Homeworld describes Urahara's planning capabilities as reaching infinite levels. Each plan accounts for different variables. He can create contingencies for his contingencies. Against Aizen, he prepared multi-layered traps. He embedded sealing Kido within initial attacks to disguise their true purpose. Against Askin, he deduced the death dealing's limitations and identified hollow weakness within hours. His fight with Yami showcased portable Gigai as decoys, creating openings through misdirection. Even Aizen fell victim despite knowing Urahara's tactical style. And you have to remember, Urahara was responsible for returning the stolen bankai of the captains during the second Quincy invasion via the shadow infiltration pills. Now, the stat of adaptability differs between them. Shunsui adapts through his versatile toolkit, switching games, escalating to his bankai. However, his adaptability functions within the constraints of his existing abilities. Against an evolved Lil, he ran out of options once his bankai proved to be insufficient. Urahara, on the other hand, adapts through analysis, he is able to reverse engineer the abilities of opponents after only one viewing. Like deducing the wall standing of the Quincy and their Blut Bean, Urahara creates vaccines, counters, and strategies instantly, adapting not just tactics but inventing new solutions as problems emerge. Both Shunsui and Urahara operate as geniuses, but their approaches differ fundamentally. Looking at durability and stamina, we can see that Shunsui tanked Stark's resurrection blows and survived exchanges with Yamamoto. Against Lil, he endured multiple X-axis shots perforating his torso, yet he continued fighting. His official stats place him in top captain tiers for durability. Urahara's durability is similarly captain tier through his detention unit training. He withstood regular assaults from Lieutenant Hiyori Sarugaki. While fighting Askin, he functioned despite severe poisoning, incapacitating most fighters. But do remember that his bankai provides him with the ability to instantly regenerate as long as he can restructure himself. Any damage short of complete destruction can theoretically be healed within range, effectively multiplying his chances of survivability. Stamina-wise, Shunsui demonstrated extended combat against Stark with interruptions. During the final arc, he fought Lil despite serious injuries, maintaining enough spiritual energy to activate and complete his bankai's full sequence. His stamina reserves appear virtually limitless under normal circumstances. Urahara's stamina is also legendary. He trained Ichigo continuously for 5 days and nights non-stop. He should be capable of expending energy for months. His extended battle with Askin, including surviving Gift Ball Deluxe's poisonous environment, showcases high-tier stamina, so both of them possess the endurance to sustain high-level combat for extended periods. Let's look at their ultimate abilities. Shunsui's Katan Kyotsu Karamatsu Shinju doesn't rely on raw strength, but it imposes narrative structure, killing through inevitability. Act 1 prevents escape through shared wounds. Even if Urahara could normally heal such damage, the conceptual nature of sharing might bypass conventional healing. The wounds are shared conceptually rather than physically inflicted. Act 2 inflicts persistent bleeding onto the individual who attacks first, via these wounds that seem to be incurable. If these wounds operate conceptually similar to Act 1, then restruction abilities might prove to be ineffective. The black spots represent the bankai's will rather than physical injuries, so potentially making them immune to physical healing. Act 3 creates an inescapable ocean, draining Reiatsu until someone drowns. The water doesn't just confine physically, it freezes resolve conceptually. Urahara's brilliant mind might find this devastating. As his greatest weapon in his arsenal is his ability to strategize, this would become suppressed by conceptual despair. The ocean cannot be escaped. Attempts to try and swim to the surface only move it further away from you. The fourth and final act of Shunsui's bankai severs and detonates the opponent's head. This worked on Lil Barrow's intangible light form, suggesting conceptual operation beyond physical interaction. Can Urahara reconstruct his head after complete obliteration? His demonstrated healing restored destroyed eyes, but never showed regeneration of completely destroyed body parts or reattached severed limbs. You have to remember, Shunsui's bankai's area of effect is enormous compared to Urahara's limited radius. Activating it creates tangible atmospheric pressure and an aura-altering perception, thus making everything appear darkened and bleak. This affects everyone in range, including allies, which is why Shunsui ensures proper distance before activation. The weakness lies in Shunsui being bound by his own rules. Act 1 means wounds that he takes appear on his opponent, but he's vulnerable if his opponent survives injuries killing him. Act 3 drains his Reiatsu equally. If he runs out first, he dies. Also, the sequential nature of his bankai means that he cannot just skip to Act 4's instant kill. Urahara's Kanonbiraki Benihime Aratame provides incredible versatility, but it operates on very different principles. It makes him extraordinarily difficult to kill through instant regeneration. Dissection can split targets regardless of durability. Enhancement allows temporary power amplification. Space reconstructing creates tactical possibilities, opening pathways where none existed. However, the bankai carries limitations. The range restriction means opponents can simply move beyond its radius to negate all effects of Urahara's bankai. The temporary nature means deactivating reverts everything. More importantly, it lacks conceptual hacks. It operates through physical manipulation rather than reality warping power. Sufficient Reiatsu or appropriate counters can overcome it. Kenpachi eventually eventually powered through Unohana's bankai by becoming stronger than it could handle, so a similar situation could happen with Urahara's bankai. What happens when these two bankai clash? If Shunsui activates his bankai first, Urahara becomes trapped in the theatrical play. Act 1 shares wounds. Urahara's reconstruction might heal while Shunsui suffers, but Act 1 might prevent healing since wounds are shared conceptually and not physically. Act 2's incurable disease threatens Urahara's greatest defense. If incurable means conceptual wounds bypass all healing, his reconstruction becomes useless. The despair of Act 3's water poses the biggest threat. This isn't psychological pressure, it freezes resolve conceptually. Urahara's intellect requires mental clarity. If the water suppresses his thinking and planning, then his advantage pretty much dissolves in the water. If Urahara manages to survive to Act 4, the thread is gonna detonate his head. His reconstruction ability healed destroyed eyes, but we didn't see it regenerating completely destroyed heads or limbs. But if Urahara activates his bankai first, he floods the battlefield with reconstruction possibilities while pressing with superior technique. The question is, can Shunsui activate bankai before being overwhelmed? Bankai activation requires concentration and time. If Shunsui is being pressed by the Soul Society's most technically skilled combatant while having his body torn apart, it's going to be very difficult for him. However, Shunsui's Shikai provides him with defensive options. Kage Oni lets him hide in shadows, becoming untargetable while attacking from any shadow touching Urahara's. Kageokuri creates convincing decoys buying him time. Daruma-san's speed amplification could let him escape Urahara's limited bankai range entirely, thus completely resetting the rules of engagement. The absolute critical factor is the limited range of Urahara's bankai. If Shunsui recognizes this and he escapes the radius, all modifications will revert. He could then activate his own bankai from outside of Urahara's bankai range, forcing the genius into the theatrical play where advantages for him diminish. What are the wildcards or X factors in this matchup? Shunsui's involve Katen Kyokotsu herself. His Zanpakuto spirit has her own personality. If she's not cooperating, his bankai may not operate at full capacity. However, against Urahara, she'd likely recognize the necessity to cooperate. Shunsui's laid-back demeanor conceals ruthlessness. Opponents mistaking his casualness for lack of seriousness realize too late that he's been manipulating them. Urahara's X factor is contingency planning. Even without prep time, his mind generates thousands of scenarios at the same time. His portable Gigai technology might create crucial openings through deception. His understanding of Shinigami abilities, thanks to him being the founder of the Research and Development Institute, provides him with potential insight into how bankai function fundamentally. Could he analyze Shunsui's bankai mid-combat and thus devise counters against it? The most significant unknown is the activation speed of their respective bankais. Shunsui needs to speak the release command and potentially convince his Zanpakuto to play along and allow the theatrical setting to manifest. Urahara, on the other hand, simply cuts himself to release blood. His activation appears to be faster. In battles between captain level fighters where both are trying to activate bankai, these seconds could determine everything. Another factor is mutual knowledge. During a specific period of time, both of them were captains under head captain Yamamoto. Shunsui acknowledged Urahara's terrifying capabilities when he ordered him into battle against the Schutzstaffel. This prior knowledge means Shunsui enters understanding exactly how dangerous Urahara is, potentially making him more cautious. Conversely, Urahara has likely studied all of the Gotei 13 captains, though Shunsui's bankai may remain to be unknown to him because even a Quincy who watched over the Soul Society for 1,000 years didn't know much about it. When it comes to the decisive factor for this matchup, it's the ultimate abilities. Shunsui fought against Lil Barrow, the leader of the Schutzstaffel, one of Yobak's strongest elite guard with reality warping intangibility. Yes, his bankai did kill Lil, who only survived through divine resurrection. So in a way, Shunsui did win, but in order to deliver the final blow, he needed Nanao's Shinken Hakyoken to finish him off permanently. On the other hand, Urahara fought against Askin Naklava, explicitly the weakest of the Schutzstaffel, but he required a 4 versus 1 Daruma-san, with Yoruichi, Grimmjow and Nell assisting him in order to deal with the Quincy. While both needed assistance, the context differs. Shunsui's bankai successfully killed Lil, who only resurrected through divine powers beyond normal combat, whereas Urahara needed multiple allies throughout the fight just to survive Asukin's abilities. When it comes to spiritual pressure, the Bleach databooks consistently place Shunsui and Ukitake's Reiatsu at the very top of their generation, rivaling past captains. Shunsui defeated Stark, the Primera Espada, using only Shikai. He never needed bankai for the #1 ranked Espada. This Reiatsu advantage matters because Bleach battles between high-level opponents often come down to spiritual pressure. But then the matter of conceptual power versus physical power needs to be taken into consideration. Shunsui's bankai operates conceptually. It doesn't care about physical durability or conventional healing. Urahara's bankai, while versatile, operates on physical principles. Against conceptual effects operating on narrative levels, reconstruction provides a limited defense. And then the range limitation of this bankai is devastating. Urahara's bankai with the limited radius versus Shunsui's bankai with the enormous area of effect. Another key factor is prep time. With prep time, Urahara's probability of victory increases significantly. He could develop counters to Shunsui's bankai, create seals and set traps. However, this scenario eliminates his most devastating asset. Without prep time, his analytical genius must work in real time against conceptual abilities that can't be analyzed away. So when it comes down to it, even if Urahara activates his bankai first, Shunsui's mobility through Kageoni and Daruma-san allows him escape from the limited range of his bankai. He can then reset the engagement distance, activate his own bankai from outside of Urahara's bankai radius, and force the genius into a theatrical play where intellect means less than spiritual pressure. So for this reason, I genuinely think that Shunsui wins 65% of encounters, while Urahara wins 35% of encounters. If Urahara has prep time, then yeah, his chances of winning increase significantly. But I did run a community poll on the channel where I asked who would win in a 1 versus 1. We got 27,000 votes, with 34% thinking that Shunsui would win and 66% thinking that Urahara would win. I think sometimes with these community polls, people think that I'm asking who's your favorite character. But when you study this matchup, it's clear that Shunsui has the advantage if Urahara doesn't have prep time. And I think the community may be conflating intelligence with combat dominance. Urahara is smarter than Shunsui in pure intellectual terms. But Bleach battles at this high level are not decided by intelligence. They're decided by spiritual pressure, conceptual abilities, and combat experience. But yeah, we have reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What are your thoughts about Shunsui versus Urahara? If there's anything that I've forgotten to mention within the video, then let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. And if you have a totally different conclusion than my own, then I'd love to read it, so please do let me know in the comments of this video. Lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this one, and I cannot wait to see you in my next video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.